Well,
All right.
if maybe people are disappointed they just didn't get the 15 minutes of gear talk. If send me a
Mm.
message if you want to hear more random gear talk. Um,
Just to clarify, we're not talking about our genitals. We could have talked about that gear, but we
yeah,
weren't. Be specific.
guitars.
Music. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, I have now just started telling people to bring up the wiki for the prologue. I think you were here for one of those instances, but
Mm-mm. No,
uh,
but you want me to?
bring up the wiki. I just had enough technical difficulties enough times. I'm like, you can the guest always has a tab they can open,
Oh,
right?
the opening narration. Okay, well, I'll just make sure I've got the mic aimed at my face.
Yeah, and
I'm
actually, I'll
recording that
make
part.
and I should bring up the page itself. I've read it, of course, and do my trivia, but it's always nice to have it in front of you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Praise a peep. Excuse me. It's not the real episode. I can do that. There's some Klugman. What came? That was a weird picture. What is it?
Oh, he
Oh,
was
he's in
meant.
the Hall of Mirrors. Okay, that's why. Sorry, I just when I did the search, I got this image. I'm like, what the hell is that? But it's when he's in the Hall of Mirrors. So, of course, it
Yeah, on
looks
the
trippy.
wiki, he had a super glue accident and his hand won't come off of his face.
Oh no! Oh right, I saw that too. Yeah, no, that's it. That's the second one I saw. Because
Yeah.
did he have facial hair in this one? No, he's just looking down. Okay, sorry. I just got a really trippy photo when I first did my search. Crooked bookie. Crooked. I guess it's not that hard to say. When I saw that written down, I thought maybe it'd be difficult to say. Crooked bookie. Crooked bookie. Okay. Now I'm just scanning the page again in case there's anything I need to know. Cast, episode notes, reworked for. Oh, actually, I didn't catch that. Oh, oh, okay. There's something important. I could have read the page earlier, but I didn't. But it seems that this is not the first mention of the Vietnam War on American television.
Okay.
It is the second with Route 66. I'll say this again in like what, 2 minutes? March 1963. Okay, interesting. Well, I guess that's going in the trivia now. Okay. I assume you probably have that prologue by now.
I got it. Yep. There it is.
Okay. Are you studying it? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm just gonna read.
No, I know that. I just spent so much time like just scanning the wiki page. I was like being
Yeah,
mildly
no, I don't
obnoxious.
usually have anything open. I'm just talking to you usually on these things. Might make
Sorry,
the lighting a little different.
my brain's working very awkwardly this morning. You know when you have like a weird stress dream and then you're just like not functioning properly for the
Hmm.
first couple
Oh, yeah.
hours?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was what was that? I think I was back home and I think it was like I was gonna hang out with you and Mark, but I was seeing a movie first and then my parents, well, let's get dinner after. And then it was seeing The Matrix Resurrections. That was the movie. And then I got out of the theater and then I'm trying to get on a train and that shit's falling out of my backpack and I'm having to clean it
Oh
all
my
up. That
God.
one of those dreams, you know? We're
Wow.
just trying to
Okay.
move and everybody wants, your time and stuff. I swear to God, that's not because of podcasting. That's the same time every day. But why is that? Let's see. What did I watch last? I watched the first half of 2010. So that couldn't have done it.
Maybe it's the podcasting with me and Mark. We just wormed our way in.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I'm just trying to work in where that stress dream came from. It
I mean,
started
aren't
off
we?
okay, and part of the dream was watching The Matrix Resurrections for like, 10 minutes of dream time. I mean, I'm sure with the movie was all wrong, but that's technically what we were
Yeah.
supposed to be watching.
Yeah. Well, I mean, aren't Mark and I your remaining connections to Doraville?
Yeah, yeah, and my parents, right? So those were the people if I'm back in town, I gotta like, figure out. I mean, honestly, that makes it pretty easy. I only need to see like what, three groups of people. So
Hmm.
that makes it
Yeah.
easy. I mean, I'll probably bump into someone else, but yeah, those are the people I still associate with, correct? So it would be
Might
pretty
be a
easy.
little have something to do with it.
The only problem is I don't have a driver's license in America. I only have a Japanese license now.
Well, you shouldn't have a license to drive in America.
No, that wouldn't make sense, would it? Well, I mean, some people, well, I notoriously don't visit home, so I haven't renewed my license, but people go and renew their license. I don't, would they make me take the test again?
I hope they do.
Hmm.
Your driving wasn't great near the end, as I recall.
Well, that was a speed trap.
That wasn't that I was I forgot about that. I'm just
Two
talking about
speed
in
traps.
general.
Oh, in general,
Just
okay.
you're driving, you were just a very, yeah, I mean, not by far, not like the worst. I could tell you who the worst driver, to the point where I was like, tell me when you're gonna be out because I want to be going the other way. It was just no, you were just, we'll put it this way. By the time you were driving the bus, I was like, they let him drive a bus?
Yeah, sure. They let me drive a bus. No, now actually, as far as like precision moves, because it's tiny Japanese streets, so I
Mhm.
would get screwed up like on a expressway now, like 285 in Atlanta. That would
Yeah.
completely like screw me up now.
Yeah, you'd have to have they need a lane for people that are just having a breakdown.
Because even when yeah, because even in Japan when you're on the highway, the expressways, it's usually two lanes, fast lane, slow lane.
Mhm.
And I don't drive
Yeah,
in
no.
Tokyo, so there's not like traffic to speak of.
No, it's awful here. I mean, it's only gotten worse. It's gotten so much worse, the
But yeah, I
traffic.
typically don't drive above at most probably 60 kilometers an hour, which is 40, 45 miles per hour. Like I rarely drive faster than 45 miles per hour, which is kind of makes me sound like a wuss, but that's how it works when you live
No,
in a
that
mountain
sounds
area
safe.
with small streets.
No, that sounds safe.
Oh, the roads aren't safe. Some of the roads I remember like flipping my parents out a few times just because of the roads I'm on.
Oh, I've seen videos of some pretty terrible ones from other countries, but um yeah, I'm like, yeah, yeah, so what? Mess with 285 at 4 o'clock.
We went to it was the Oyaki Village. Was it last year? It was a few years ago. Anyway, the point is that went up a gravel, like a dirt mountain road with no guardrails for a while.
Mm, I
So
think
that
crashing would be a relief.
mm. Fortunately, you didn't have to go back down that road. So
Right? Oh
it
my
was
God.
like you went up, you went to this Oyaki's a food, by the way. You got your food in this big smoky place where they were cooking it, and then you went down the other side of the mountain on a road that was less scary. So,
Okay.
but it was a one-way road. So,
Yeah. That's not like all the worst things about driving in Pittsburgh
but no, I
combined
actually
into
like
one way.
I'm one of the few people that I think would be like, yeah, the drivers around here like aren't too bad. There's other Japanese cities where the drivers are worse, but I'm like around here they're generally not too bad. Which you never hear people say the people around my house are like drive reasonably well.
No, in fact, I would say everyone seems to be out to kill me and they know when I'm leaving my
Right,
house.
right. Like the last city I lived in, was Maebashi, and there the driver was much crappier. Or if I drive to Nagano City, which is I live in Nagano, that's the main city.
Mhm.
That I always hate driving there. But yeah, around here it's usually not a problem. Um, let's see, Pip. There we go. The people got the banter on traffic instead. Let me give
Okay.
five. I'll give a 5-second pause. I will start the show. Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast, where we talk about all the episodes of The Twilight Zone and beyond. This is Matt here as always. Coming back, it's the first episode of season 5, so it makes sense to bring the guy that was on the first couple episodes of The Twilight Zone's the Time Enough Podcast. Twilight, what am I saying? You get it. Okay. Hi, Andrew.
I didn't realize I was on one of the first. I'm honored.
You were on the first two, remember?
Oh, was I? Okay. No, I don't remember, but that's wonderful.
The
Okay.
original concept of this podcast, and hopefully this doesn't make you feel too bad, but the original concept was that you were going to be on maybe half the episodes, but then it turned out a lot of people wanted to talk about the Twilight Zone. So,
That's good though. I mean, that's wonderful.
yeah.
No, I don't have time.
Mm.
I don't have enough
Right.
time.
We got time for this though. 25 minutes time. We're back to 25 minutes. That's kind of
Right.
Twilight Zone Prime. I would not have liked to see this episode running 50 minutes, so that's good.
Mm-mm, no.
Well, it wasn't supposed to, so it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the big question on all the season 4 was like, should it be this long? Which a few of them should have, but a
A
few of
few,
them
yeah.
for
Well, you
sure
were getting
Nazis. Not,
Sterling.
not, not. SIE. You see what I'm
Yeah,
I
I
I
do.
explained in the pre-show my brain is like my dream destroyed my brain this morning and I'm still see I'm Twilight Zones this morning.
Yeah. No, have Sterling was on the cusp of some like feature-length movie scripts happening with this previous Twilight Zone. But I think my favorite thing is all the economy of storytelling that typifies the majority of Twilight Zone episodes. And so I'm not mad at it. I think it was fine to go back to this format.
Oh yeah, I mean I think the creators of the show always wanted this anyway. They didn't want the full hour format. It was like because a show replaced them and another show. So it's like, okay,
Mhm.
Twilight Zone's coming back. The 8:30 time slot's not coming back. So now you got to fill that too. Which you don't
Yeah.
say no to that if you're coming back from cancellation, you know?
Oh my God, absolutely not.
I get it. It's yeah, no one's to blame there, you know?
But this is still the final season of the series, right?
That is correct. So if
Okay.
anyone's wondering what the trajectory is for beyond, we do this 36 episodes of season 5, and then we're gonna peel out, I think, next and go directly to the Jordan Peele one. We're bouncing around some. Um,
Okay. Okay.
then back
Oh
to the
man.
80s, then maybe to Night Gallery. Haven't and again, listeners chime in if the 2000 show is worth it because it's kind of hard to find, I think.
Yeah, I'm interested because the 80s one is the one I don't revisit. Um, so I mean, obviously I mostly watch Classic Zone, but I loved Jordan Peele's 2 seasons.
See,
So
the
I'm in
80s one is
whatever.
actually the one I grew up with. I didn't see proper Twilight Zones probably till the mid to late 90s when my parents finally got cable.
Oh,
Before, because if you were watching syndicated TV in Atlanta in the 80s and 90s, you were probably getting the 80s series.
yeah, the marathons were always still the classic.
Right. And that's, it's the same with Star Trek. They do the marathons for that too. And that's where I would see most of the old Star Trek and the old Twilight Zone. I VHS'd all the Star Trek, but I did not do that for the Twilight Zone. Oops.
Yeah, no, I that was mostly when I watched Zone was the those wonderful New Year's Day marathons.
And Tales from the Dark Side, Ray Bradbury Theater, those are on my shelf. That's
They're on
the
mine too. Yeah, I've got all
staring
those.
at my shelf is how this podcast started. I was like, I wonder how I'm going to end up watching all those.
The
Maybe by
one I
doing this
want that I
podcast.
don't have is Monsters. It went out of print before I could have bought it, but I was like, it's a little too much. Now it's gone.
Ah, I guess Freddy's Nightmares is hard to track down as well.
Freddy's Nightmares. I think Screambox app had it for a while. I don't know. Some friends of mine wrote a companion book for Freddy's Nightmares.
Ah, okay. Oh, there's only like 9 of them or something.
I can't
It's not that
remember.
many. Yeah, because the Friday the 13th series, which had nothing to do with Jason, actually ran for a couple of years, right? But
I
they're
have
like
that, and
it
it's
was
good.
it was there in a store and had cursed objects. Is that how that
Mhm.
worked? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I guess
yeah.
I saw a lot of that show.
It's really great.
But
Like,
I remember as a child, at least, not liking it as much as, say, Freddy's Nightmares, Tales of the Dark Side, or Ray Bradbury Theater. I didn't see
yeah,
much of Tales from the Crypt because, again, no cable.
yeah. That one also, yeah, that was eventually a DVD release. I don't have, so I haven't seen that very many because yeah, they we lost cable. I don't think we ever had HBO.
Well, I don't need to buy any new box sets for this podcast probably till like 2030 something, so we're good for
Okay.
now. And I
Okay.
imagine I might be buying that in 2030 something because I'm like you. I think we're both still like suckers for physical media.
Well, yeah, because it's like, why look for something when it's right there, and why like sit through the commercials because it makes it take longer when you can just throw it on, you know?
And just the joy of thumbing through stuff and finding something you hadn't thought about or forgotten about, that's always
Yeah, it like is a visual reminder that that exists. Absolutely, yes.
uh I guess we'll praise Pip a bit first with some trivia. The original air date for this episode was September 27th, 1963. First episode of the season, so that makes sense that the script is a Serling. Joseph M. Newman directed. He's new to the zone, but we will see him a few more times during season 5. He's also known for helming the film This Island Earth and a stint on Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Max Phillips was played by Jack Klugman. It's his 4th time in the zone, so he should probably get a room with it or something. Anywho, 12 Angry Men, The Odd Couple on TV, Quincy MD, the list is legendary. And, that's off the top of my head. So if I miss something you love, that's my head. Connie Gilchrist played Mrs. Feely. Wiki says that she's best known for 1949's A Letter to Three Wives and 1958's Auntie Mame. Mommy? Mamie? I don't know. They may be wonderful films, but I cannot say they ring any bells with me, and I cannot pronounce the second one properly. Could be Auntie. I don't know. Fully Grown Private Pip was played by Bobby Diamond. Interestingly, he had already had his 15 minutes of fame as a child actor on the TV show Fury, which aired from 1955 to 1960. He was later up for the role of Robin on Batman 66, but he was deemed too old at the ripe age of 21. Getting younger, 10-year-old Pip is Bill Mummy, returning to the zone after It's a Good Life. And again, just off the top of my head, Lost in Space, Deep Space Nine, and the 2000s Twilight Zone. And I missed something major there, I'm sure, but top of my head. I was top of my head in it last night for trivia. Now, there's a little bit of not controversy, but this episode is thought to be the first mention of the Vietnam War on an American television drama. Looking here, it looks like Route 66 beat it by about 5 months, March 1963. But I definitely, when I was watching this episode, I was like, wait, Vietnam, what? I don't know
Yeah.
if you had a bit of that take.
Yeah.
Like at
Yeah. Well,
first, we've seen so much Vietnam stuff. At first, I'm just like, oh yeah, Vietnam War. And then, wait, this is 1963,
yeah. Yeah, because that would be before Gulf of Tonkin.
right? So I guess we had a few, what was it, advisors at that point. So I guess Private Pip is an joining an advisor. I don't know how that works exactly. Um,
No, I mean this would still be under Kennedy.
right, just barely, but anyway, that does make this one like quite interesting. That's the thing. Uh,
Yeah.
can you give us that prologue, please?
All right, so opening narration, which means I'm gonna need to dry my teeth. All right, here we go. Submitted for your approval. One Max Phillips, slightly the worse for wear maker of book, whose life has been as drab and undistinguished as a bundle of dirty clothes. And though it's very late in his day, he has an errant wish that the rest of his life might be sent out to a laundry, but come back shiny and clean. This to be a gift of love to a son named Pip, Mr. Max Phillips, Homo sapiens, who is soon to discover that man is not as wise as he thinks. Said lesson to be learned in the Twilight Zone.
So this is a submitted for your approval, or maybe
Yeah.
it's picture, if you will. There's one that people ascribed of Serling that he does not say, sort of the beam me up Scotty of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Maybe that's picture, if you will. I don't remember now because I
I
guess
submitted for your approval is usually the one that people are uh I think the one that I would think of as far
yeah,
as
yeah. I guess maybe it's the second one that people that he didn't actually say. I don't remember.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, and
because
I
it's
don't
always
know.
that's a joy in Trek when people almost say "beam me up, Scotty," but like one word is off, and you're
They know what they're doing.
like,
Not for this, I would think that it would have something to do with this ongoing issues with the upper management and the advertisers that basically have the last say in what he does creatively. And so it always struck me as like a little jab.
that could be it. Yeah, and like yeah. I guess so. We just did the Bard, from season 4, so that's full of
Yeah,
that energy.
there you go. Yeah.
So usually there's some co-hosts on the show that I just kind of toss episodes to. Some request. You typically request. This is
Mhm.
actually the first one, and is this the first one? I just said, hey, dude, do this one.
Nope.
Okay.
No, no, but I'm always happy to watch it because when you put out the I'm sure your listeners know, but how it works is season starts and Matt will ask all of us what are some ones that we really really want to be on the recording of. And so I'll usually just put the ones that I know are the spookiest, weirdest, or just ones that I would put into my mixes when I'm now doing my own uh New Year's Day. And it's like putting on an album and just deciding kind of which tracks you want to hear. That's kind of the way that I do it. I'm like a my own Twilight Zone DJ. So those are the ones that I'll tell you. Other than that, though, and I don't expect to get all of those, but other than that, yeah, I'm in for whatever. Because what's the worst thing? I watch a Twilight Zone that I haven't seen in a few years, or maybe just one that I've skipped over for whatever reason. So I'm happy to do
Where do you sit with Pip? Pip, no, okay, sit with Pip. That works.
it. I love this one, and I've liked it. I found I like it more the older I've gotten, but I also tend to not watch it just because not to get too personal, but I've had some back and forths with about my own dad since he passed. He died in October of 2013, and it wasn't of an illness. He died from blunt force trauma that he incurred in a motorcycle wreck. And so you're just sort of kind of left with things. And as I go through grief counseling and therapy about it, and talking to my mom, dad was my hero growing up, but there was a lot about him that was kind of sucked, and so finding a good place for that to be in my brain and my body to where I'm not like mad at him and see him as just someone that pisses me off. I don't want to think about him because I don't want to be the hate his dad guy, because I'm everyone that knew me, including you, knew that I loved him a lot, and I really kind of emulated a lot that he did. So In Praise of Pip is a father-son story. In fact, Jack Klugman's character, he he's not the greatest dad, and he struggles with that once the situation has been put upon him. And at first, you're like, man, it's amazing that he's not the one who has died. Just, that he's running with some very bad criminal element. And, but it is pretty obvious that he's been a shitty parent. And so, yeah, I don't have the urge to revisit it because it mostly kind of reminds me of those things. It doesn't traumatize me or upset me to watch it now, but I think the first time, I don't think I've watched it since my dad had passed away because I knew that it would kind of bring up feelings for me, especially now that, yeah, I know some of the not so great stuff that he did, you know.
Well, I will throw out that, as mentioned before, I was like, first episode of the season, I'll invite Andrew. So there was no loaded gun in the
I
invitation there.
didn't no, there's no way you could have thought that. But I thought about I was like, damn, I don't remember Praise of Pip that well, but I know what it's about. And I'm like, oh, that's why. That's why, because I at one point I was just going off my memory of what it was like. But I'm happy to say that it's not quite as heavy as I had remembered. And so I wouldn't mind adding this to the rotation. It's just sometimes I want to see the lighter ones or the more scary ones or the more like science fictiony ones or some of just classic episodes. I don't know where this falls for other people, but I really I see it now as an activist piece, an anti-war piece, as one of Rod Serling's, his gift was being able to get his ideas across and his real feelings across and his political positions and things like that in a way that wasn't so obvious that he would have gotten censored or just flat turned down.
I don't know if we've talked about it, like you and I have talked about. It's been talked about on this podcast that there is just like a weird like wrinkle to the quote anti-war stance with Rod Serling, where um we really came thinking this when we did Carol for Another Christmas, which he did in
Mm.
1964.
Yeah, yeah.
But the weird wrinkle and maybe the difference between, say, the Star Trek Roddenberry thing and the Twilight Zone is, and it comes through in a few episodes, Changing the Guard has it, but that, oh, we're gonna have war, let's just try and do it honorably.
Hmm.
Like we can't not have war. And I was talking about with somebody, and they were like, well, even in the Roddenberry future, you first have to have like nuclear devastation, and then we get past
Yeah,
war. So
yeah.
even Roddenberry, who was also served, like these guys that were in World War II couldn't quite fathom just there is no war, which I think maybe us younger hippie people like maybe want to try and think. I mean, in 2024, that's not really working out, but
No.
So maybe Rod's right, which is depressing. But you could try and be an activist, but then it's like, am I a realist activist? Am I an optimistic activist? Do I have to be optimistic to be an activist,
No, and that's absolutely true. And I'm glad you make that distinction, particularly in the here in the States. I mean, this is the most divisive times that I've ever lived through where they politicize absolutely everything, and you've got a lot of black and white thinking. Um, the idea that people throw around every now and then, still, which is odd to me, the idea of World War III. But I read maybe a couple of books years ago about that posited theory that the World War III was fought and won, and not by us, online years ago, and that divisiveness is the result. And I believe that. It's interesting. Sterling could have never known, obviously, but he, as a veteran, as a someone who had served as well, um, Sterling got to look at it that the average person watching TV even wouldn't have necessarily been able to. And so, like you're saying, the idea of just war or that level of conflict never stopping, like I get it.
And here's something, I mean, we're both Americans. I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, well, you got enough stuff going on now. You could kind of argue it's World War III right now or at other points in the past 50 years, but
Mhm.
nothing's blowing up in America or Western Europe. So
It
we
won't,
don't we
yeah, it
don't
won't
notice
look
that it's a
like,
world war.
yeah, it didn't look like that's what those books are. And I'm sorry I can't remember one of the names of them, but yeah, it was like just because we're not seeing, devastation on the news of that kind, like a physical devastation, doesn't mean the effects of war haven't, you know what I'm saying, still occurred.
Um, lightening it up a little bit at the beginning of this episode, and partly because I'm often listening to George Carlin in the car. When we do see the bookies and stuff at the beginning, I decide to play my own round of scumbag asshole jack off. So what did I come with? Klugman's character Phillips. I put him down as a scumbag.
Hmm.
Um, dying is better news than dead. Okay, that's what the asshole says. And
Hmm.
I thought maybe that's what I would say in that situation. So I'd be the asshole in the situation. Um, and the guy that got beat up, George, is the jackoff then. So it actually
Okay.
worked out really well when I decided to play around of that.
Yeah, Asshole Jackoff Scumbag is a fake game show. And in some of Carlin's older albums, he's got these little things in between what would be the stand up. And sometimes the older you get, the more of that's just like playing with your head is mostly the bits, right? I think.
Yeah, like the list of book clubs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are little things that he did in the studio, and Asshole Jackoff Scumbag is one of them. I'm so glad, I'm so glad that we brought that into this.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Because now
just
I'm laughing instead of thinking about war.
clearly I'm relaxing the language on this podcast just a little bit, but yeah.
Oh gosh, I think I said.
You did. But I'm like, am I gonna edit that? I guess people already know if they heard the boom, 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 boom sound, but
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I don't want to create like more editing points for you, so
yeah.
I'll
Anyway, I have decided that that word can be said on television, so it could be said here. So
Sure.
just if anyone's wondering. Uh if you really want to hear us be foul mouthed, we have other podcasts where you can hear that too, by the way. Go look
Oh,
up our Human Centipede 2 podcast if you want to
oh
hear
no,
F-bombs of every other.
did I?
All of us. We were just like, yeah,
Oh,
we were real ripe on that one. It was great.
oh
That's
my
Films and
goodness.
Filth, which is fine. That's another
Maybe it's
podcast.
because I've known y'all since I was like, those years of when you're a kid where like cussing is fun.
It
Maybe I just revert to that. I don't know. What at
is
any rate,
fun.
I'll try and be
Oh, no,
mindful.
that's fine. I was thinking of the arc of the Jack Klugman roles, because he's got the four. First one's trumpet. Second one is Templeton. Then it's Death Ship. Then it's here. And it's kind of weird that his first and his last are the most like kind of humanist ones. Where here he's
Mhm.
like you said, trying to balance the thing where he's not too heavy, but trying to get the point across. Passage for Trumpet, the same kind of thing. And then Death Ship is just like angry people shouting at each other in a death ship. So
Yeah, it
also
kind of
great, but very different tones. So I do like how many tones they were able to, I mean, get from him, and then kind
yeah,
of
I mean
return
that's
to
the
the
thing.
first one for the fourth time.
Yeah, it shows his versatility,
Oh,
and
Game
that's
of
why
Pool,
you get
excuse me, not
rehired.
Templeton. I'm saying that for a different comparison. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's his second one was a Game of Pool. Okay, that one's pretty heavy. That one's good though. Yeah. Everybody loves some Klugman.
Well, that's the thing, he was a leading man on television. And in here, you have to, even though his character is uh I won't,
Scumbag.
well, we can call him, yeah, scumbag's not a cuss word. We can call him that, but you also have to like him and you have to not want him to die, certainly. Um, because I mean, in all honesty, what we would say today, he's an addict, you know. I mean, he's got issues. And
Right,
so
right.
we can assume because he's estranged from his son that those are the reasons why.
Yes. Of course, his son is his stand up. He's in the army now, and
Mhm.
you're gonna die, which
Yeah.
is where this is. So I guess that's they get to the hallucinations pretty quickly after establishing him as a scumbag. What do you want to call them? Hallucinations. That's what I wrote in my notes.
Yeah, I know, I read that. I mean, that's kind of how I read them. Um, just because we know that he's got a substance abuse problem. And so with that, we have an unreliable narrator. And with that, you can have hallucinations.
Yeah, and he's very accepting of it because sometimes when people see this in the Twilight Zone, as you've been there for, they start flipping out a bit. So,
No.
I mean, I guess he's flipping out. Well, he's flipping out because he's like, oh no, Pip is dying, which makes sense. So you can see him flipping out about that. The hallucinations himself don't seem to be flipping him out though.
No, no. And that's good because as an audience member, they don't want you to get your focus to kind of get away from the main thing that Serling's trying to do with this because like we were saying, Vietnam War in 63 wasn't to the public what it would become. Um, but still, this is it's something that couldn't be avoided, and especially when it comes to someone like Serling and who he's the audience he's trying to communicate with. I don't think he felt like he was communicating with people who were against war. I think he was trying to get people who maybe were like just sort of letting it go by, as in living with war. Like in that movie, The Zone of Interest. I don't know if you saw, but that's like a great, that's one of the best anti-war movies I can think of in a long time where it's not so on the nose. um, Serling was showing concern and showing how things like the draft would, or just the military in itself, even without draft, was devastating families. And so, uh, for him to do a story about this, I think that was an early indicator of where things would end up going.
I
You
mean, I
know,
guess practicality wise, he probably was just like, okay, I want to do a modern day story that needs to involve an American dying in conflict. Where is
why
the
not the
conflict
one we're
going
in
on?
right now?
Well,
Yeah,
just you start looking like where are Americans currently in conflict? Like right now, everywhere. I don't know, but I guess where do we? That's the thing. I don't even know, right? The U.S. has military bases everywhere now, so I guess this theoretically could be anywhere, and it works out fine.
yeah, no, they're pulled out of the Afghan war, but they're in terms of like actually leaving.
Yeah, you could
Um,
probably still base a story there. I mean, there's still probably a few advisors hanging about. Well, actually, I know it's the Taliban, maybe not, but I don't know.
no,
That's my whole point. I don't know.
yeah, well, I've worked in news media for so long that I can't not get up and want to read the news immediately. Like that's I guess if I'm old in one way, but I was doing that in my 20s, you know.
Yeah. Although I've gotten to the point now where I guess, like you said, everything's so black and white. It's like choosing your news sources now, like choose your flavor. So often, if
Um,
there's a big event, I will make sure to look at like five or six different, I will go directly from CNN to Fox News, right? To,
yeah.
something in Europe just to see how the headlines are different.
Yeah, I mean, you with Reuters or Associated Press, I would say Associated Press, although the editing has really kind of gone downhill. But that's just news in
Yeah, I was about
general.
to say, I find typos in plenty of news
Yeah.
media these days.
Yeah, no, but and not to derail this too much to be about it, but Al Jazeera for a while was one of the best in terms of world news because
Right, right.
they weren't like beholden to sponsors and all this other stuff. So the less commercials that are involved with the news you're consuming, the better you can kind of rest in terms of what.
Japanese news is just weird because they're really vague at first.
Uh,
Like when Abe was assassinated 2 years ago,
mhm.
the first headlines, murmurs were Abe has collapsed at a rally, and you're like, well, he had health problems. I guess he, had a stroke or something. It's like, no, no, he didn't collapse. Someone shot him. That's a very different thing. And with the
Yeah,
Trump thing, it was like, the assassination attempt, it was just like the Japanese news at first is just like shots were fired at a Trump rally. And I was like, well, then they're probably just shooting into the air, right?
yeah,
Yeehaw!
yeah. No, right. It's like, of course they were, aren't they
Yosemite
always?
Sam style.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it was a little, that one was a little odd here too, because they did first say that a part of the podium had been hit with a bullet and had flown up
Okay, you
and
heard that too, because that's the thing. I have, well, I have heard people say pay attention to what comes out in the news very quickly after the event and then vanishes, and that's what I tracked this time.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
because no
yeah.
one
So
talked about like, did I make that up? And well, you heard it too, so good.
yeah, no, no, and it's absolutely true. And I'll say this, we work with what we've got at first when it comes to breaking stories. So you have to be really careful to like give people as much information as possible, but let it be known that where you got that from and that it's going to be a developing, you know what I mean?
I guess Japanese news is like really, like skittery about getting sued or something. I don't know, because sometimes they'll show like I love this. I don't know if this is the case in America, but they're showing, say, someone's class photo, like someone's in the news, they're showing their class photo from 10 or 20 years earlier, and every face except theirs is blurred. I'm like, why are you even showing us the whole photo, It's
That's
like
odd. Sounds
15
like it's
blurred
like,
faces and then this one person, right?
yeah, it's like, that was a lot of, that's somebody's only job. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not done blurring the faces. It's like, crop, done.
Well, I mean, they've been doing it forever. What is it? The famous photo of Abraham Lincoln is actually his rival, John C. Calhoun, and they just pasted Lincoln's face on him,
Oh God.
which is
Well,
kind of hysterical when you think about it.
it's really, and that's, you would think it would happen yesterday, given what all people are able to do just on their phones,
Well, you had to have much more skill to do that in the
Mhm.
1860s or whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
especially
true.
with early photographic technology. But they were still photoshopping, just the very analog version of it.
Oh yeah, but they believed it then, they'll believe it now.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
um, Now Pip, Ghost Pip, I guess he's a fever dream. I was just, maybe you saw this in my notes. I was thinking about like, I was listening to people play Lorcana, the Disney game, where it's like, no, these are not the Disney characters. These are ink representations of them. So if Mickey Mouse is strangling Pluto, or it's not actually Mickey Mouse is strangling Pluto to death. It's the ink versions. And
Mhm.
Smash Brothers, I didn't know those were supposed to be the DAWs. Like I played hours and hours of Smash Brothers. I never knew that those were not actually supposed to be the characters. Did you know this?
No, this is
They're supposed to be
kind of
dolls of
blowing
the
my mind a
characters.
little bit.
So Mario is not sucker punching Princess Peach. These are dolls
Okay.
because they don't want their characters ripping each other apart.
Yeah, but who knew that? Zero.
Yeah, you have to like read the manual, I guess, to figure this out, which nobody reads the manual
Nobody
because
does. No,
why would
absolutely
you?
no.
And mine's in Japanese, so I wouldn't have read it anyway.
Great.
They could have made them. I bet my daughter read it. She read instruction manuals.
Yeah, okay.
She
Would
probably
she?
knew that. I could have asked her who are the Smash Brothers. She'd know.
Yeah, maybe she thought it was funny not to tell you.
All right. Um, so if you are having hallucinations, well, first, Bill Mummy here, more or less creepy than It's a Good Life for You. Where do you want to plant
Mm,
your flag on that?
yeah, no, less. It's like you recognize him, but the idea is if I didn't know that he was this, this complete and total maniac from this other episode, nah, he's fine. I mean, he's a great actor, I thought.
Yeah, I guess the previous episode just still coloring him in this episode because he's so distinctive looking, and that episode has such a sucker punch of weirdness.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, you look at your list of killer kids, especially from that era. It's like him and Patty McCormick, and then the list kind of drops from there.
Is it the ginger thing?
Absolutely. Not a coincidence.
I don't know. I definitely love when we end in a hall of mirrors. What Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, I believe. Oh, that's yeah. He goes after the Joker in a hall of mirrors, which that's a comic book and an animation, but
Jordan
very
Peele,
effective.
the movie Us, Hall of Mirrors.
Right, right. So definitely a very standard, nice place to end your Twilight Zone. John Wick. Is it chapter two? Does that?
I've only seen it once.
Okay, I think it's chapter two has a very good Hall of Mirrors sort of scene. That's an art installation in that movie, but
Yeah,
it's still a Hall of Mirrors.
even if I'd seen them more than once, I don't even think I could tell you what happened in which one. I just know which one Halle Berry's
He
in.
shoots that dude.
He shoots a lot of dudes.
And then just think of how many fathers are having hallucinations of their gangland sons having just been shot by John Wick. John
Sure.
Wick is causing tons of pips.
Yeah, he is. Oh God.
Wicks cause pips. That seems to be the dirtiest thing said on this podcast so far.
I was just thinking, it's this fall in the Yankee Candle Shop.
Right, right. Um, yeah, so I guess that's the thing. I guess this is a pretty standard, mostly by the number story. I mean, not to betray what I'm going to say for my tripometer, but it has Twilight Zone stuff, and I'm certainly not saying it's not a Twilight Zone episode, but it is kind of like you said, I guess the emotional weight is more than the supernatural or metaphysical weight by far.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you take that stuff away and you go like, well, this is just the firing on all cylinders Twilight Zone episode to where you've got like reality, then you've got the questionable reality. Obviously, he's seeing his son and he acknowledges that, Pip, why are you young, and stuff like that, and the audience is going like, well, yeah, because this isn't really happening. So by season 5, people know. And so really what this one has going for it is a fabulous performance by Klugman. Economy, which means the world it's set in is really small. You've got a bit of Vietnam where Pip is the adult Pip. You've also then you've just got what? You've got him dealing with the bookies and stuff with the mob guys. Not a whole lot else going on in terms of the scope of the story because it
Yeah,
doesn't need it.
right. I guess it's like the first episode of the season. You want to serve like, a nice simple steak or something. It's
Mhm.
not time for a spicy chicken mole dish, even though I prefer the chicken mole dish. But
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, and you want to have, people check out Twilight Zone that maybe didn't watch season 4 because it was too long or whatever. So this was a way for it to like back to basics, like you're saying. So that makes sense. But with that in mind, though, for me, someone who looks for Twilight Zone for certain things sometimes, and like I say, if I'm going in just wanting the scary ones, or if I'm going in wanting like the ones where it's like, oh no, we're back in time, or whatever like that, I've walked to the past. But or any of those number of things that Twilight Zone manages to do multiple times, but still so well every time that you'll let them get away with it.
yeah, I'm having a look at the first episode. Of course, Where is Everybody? You were on for, and we basically said like that's basically like a primer, right, for the Twilight Zone.
It's a
Um,
template, right? But it was a great one.
yeah.
So this is, yeah, I'm with
King
you.
Nine Will Not Return was pretty weird. That's second season. I feel like that's a little bit weirder than these first season ones tend to be.
How far in was that one?
I'm looking at first episodes aired for each season.
Okay.
Season three started with two, which is I mean, that's two actors basically. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty simple one. That's the steak and not the
Sizzle.
spicy weird dish. In His Image, that was a weird one to start season four with.
It was, but I'm still
That one was
thinking
pretty trippy.
if they lost people with 5, um, bringing it back to the classic with the snap ending, because who thinks that he's actually talking to God and that he's actually able to say, kill me instead? You know what I mean?
Well, that
Uh,
plate glass mirror probably did the job.
well, I'm sure it did.
Shattered mirror, excuse me.
Yeah, no, he's been shot, but I still think that there's that question of because with Twilight Zone we're talking about it's a reality that you recognize but not quite. And that's what we love about it. And so coming back off of 4, yeah, you've seen Twilight Zone forever, but I think they wisely realized that Twilight Zone more is an impression that it made. It was a type of things that people want to see from it and a mood. So they want to see great performances, they want to see it wrapped up quickly, and they want to be like shocked to some degree by what happens. Um, I don't know how shocking that part is. It ends in a sort of predictable way, given, if you've seen a lot of these. I think what the reason why I'm praise of Pip, at least for me as a standout, is because of the fact that it was addressing a war that was not only kind of it was a few years like Vietnam technically started in what, the late 50s or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, the French and were, it's like their colony or whatever. So they were
Right,
dealing with
right.
the
Okay, so
uprisings by the natives. I guess the French
this was
don't. Well,
still
Jean-Luc
like,
Picard talks that way.
yeah, they could have said it in World War II or something, but they didn't. They made it a modern story. And so I think all of those moves were super smart, and were showing that there is still an edge to the Twilight Zone after all that time.
Yeah. Granted, the fact that this is one of the first mentions of what would turn out to be one of the biggest, not just, like military stuff, but just culturally, Vietnam War, right? It's, I
No,
mean, you
exactly.
couldn't
And
have predicted that in 63.
no, you couldn't have. And that's the thing. This episode hit uh probably harder on re-airings, you know, and definitely now, all this time removed from the Vietnam War, it's obviously not a war that anyone has any good thoughts about. And so
It
anytime you
does
watch
make this episode kind of deeper, right? Like
it, well, no, it
unintentionally so.
absolutely does. You were struck at the beginning by the fact it's in Vietnam. And like you were saying, you look at it and you're like, when we think of Vietnam era, we really think of
Fortunate
later.
son.
Yeah, later than this at least. This is 63 when
Yeah.
this was made, you
Yeah, yeah,
said? Okay.
68 is when I start expecting seeing that show up in movies and TV.
Yeah, and I would give them 66, things like that, but 63, that's early. And so just the fact that they did it, it's a whammy, man, when you watch
Whammy.
it.
Um, I the scene where he dies is, I guess, more realistic, but I was hoping for a bit of the fever. Do you remember the death in the fever? Everyone
Yeah,
walks up, gawks, and then turns around and walks away. Nobody stays.
that would have thrown off the whole vibe, dude.
It would have. It did. It belonged in the fever. It didn't belong here. But that was. I did
One
just start
kid
thinking.
stays eating ice cream.
But I was kind of expecting that to happen, I guess, because I'd already seen it in the Twilight Zone.
Right? No, they played it well because the that has to go with his character. It can't betray his character. Because you know how it goes. This movies set out their own kind of justice system. So in the end, you have to remember, okay, well, this guy did this, and so he's going to have to there has to be repercussions in the story for him, you know. But this was like the one thing he didn't give his son in life that in death he's able to then give to him, you know. And so, I mean, as a parent, this also hits different versus someone who maybe is not a parent.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Of course, we both have daughters. If the listeners are interested, we do not have sons, but yeah, it's same sort of things apply. I am looking here. I'm still the a-hole by the end of the episode as well, because my notes when he's dying are talking to God as the last refuge of a scoundrel, and the
Mm-hmm.
Aztec god would take both of them,
Right.
rip out their hearts, and toss them down the other side of the pyramid.
Exactly. So, y'all, it could
Be
have been a
careful
lot.
which god you're pleading to. If it's
That's right. You need to be specific.
Quetzalcoatl, I might have said that wrong. He's a feathered serpent.
Oh my God. I was just thinking of that. I almost went on a Larry Cohen trip. I was watching a couple and I was like, do I want to go to Q or do I just want to leave it where it's at? I was watching the It's Alive movies, you know,
Oh, okay.
the killer baby monster thing. But yeah, Q is one of my favorites. But um, yeah, that right there, just to me is I'll say this, and this will circle back to the beginning when I talked about my dad. My dad hit his head on some concrete stairs when he was small. and he had to get a blood transfusion, and his father, my granddad, was the same blood type. And so he saved his kid's life by giving, his blood to him, you know. And I think about that, and these are these things as parents we just don't think twice about, you know. And when you're talking about someone who had part of the reason why he had a drinking problem and part of the reason the way he lived the life he did was because yeah, he was a scumbag, but also um he didn't uh he didn't feel that he could change that. He was just sort of like settled into the idea that, yeah, I'm a scumbag, I was a terrible dad, and that weighs on somebody. I mean, we can't help but feel a little bit sorry for him because yeah, he made bad choices, but what do we know as grown-ups? Our parents are just people who are bigger. They just lived, but they're not like superhuman. They're not superheroes. They're still people and they screw up. And so, watching it with those things in mind, I think, well, it's a redemption story.
I had another one of my weird synergistic viewings, I guess. Yesterday I watched, and I had not seen this since 1994. I watched Falling Down, and with that's like
Oh my God, how does that play now in the incel and
very weird. But
they call it domestic terrorists, but it's really just terrorists.
the satire parts actually stick out more now. You can watch it on YouTube if you haven't seen the movie in a while, but the scene where he goes to the golf course is like extremely good black comedy.
Okay, yeah, but I'm thinking more of like man, white guy with gun,
It
middle-aged white
looks,
guy with gun.
and it's as the movie goes on, if you don't remember it, so because I'm just trying to point out that Phillips in here is a very different kind of because he beaten upon because he's the bad dad. He's been separated from his kid for a
Mhm.
few years, right? And same in
Yeah.
Falling Down. It's a younger kid. They do make it clear in the movie that he was never psychologically okay. It's not like because people are like, oh, it's about a guy who just snaps one day. It's like, no, he was already extremely demented. His family was already kind of terrified from him. Those are
Oh yeah.
details about that movie we forget, where I guess Pip's not terrified of Klugman. He might not like him, but yeah, or maybe he is. I don't know. They don't really make that clear.
You get the idea that he made something of himself despite his father, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
that he was going to be the disciplined one, that he was going to be the one to make a difference. He was going to be the one that was serving others rather than serving themselves in their own, like, pettiness or
Mm.
whatever, So just knowing that he went into the military, I mean, it says something about the kind of father that his dad was, because his dad doesn't strike you as someone who was like strict and regimented and short cropped hair. Like my dad's dad was a former sergeant in World War II, and so that was it was of that generation. And so you have, instead of the super oppressed guy cutting loose and becoming a hippie, you've got the one whose dad was just you know a scumbag, and he made something of himself anyway.
Right. I guess that's the difference in Falling Down. He's not any of the three distinctions
No.
Carlin put out. He's a psycho, right?
Yeah,
That's
he's
that's yet another one. The Carlin sketches did not involve psychos.
I haven't rewatched Falling Down. It was a favorite of mine when it came out, just because, a revenge movie with a lot of humor, was
Yeah.
different than how it would have been in the 70s.
Hmm.
Falling Down had been made in the 70s. And Schumacher,
Schumacher, who we all crap on him so much because of those Batman movies, but it's like, man, he actually made a lot of good movies.
8 mm is amazing.
Yeah,
I thought,
he did Lost Boys, didn't he?
yes, I
Yeah.
thought the other day, because this new Crow is out. I haven't seen it, but I'm going to. But the old Crow, um, I watched it for the first time since we all saw it. So I had no desire to watch that again. I mean, it's just a bummer. It's all you can think about is this guy died making this movie. You can't.
And
But the
then the
movie
movie
itself,
itself is also a bummer too. Great.
it is. It's very 90s, and all it made me think about was, in some alternate universe, instead of asking Joel Schumacher to make toy commercials, someone lets him make Batman Year One, rated R, and lets Brandon Lee play Batman. And I was tripping off of that the whole rest of the night after I
I guess we
watched.
kind of got that a few years ago with the Pattinson Batman. That
Yeah, that's as
basically
close as
plays
we
that
got.
way.
But
Yeah.
but my point in mentioning this is that Schumacher could have done it if they'd asked him to,
Right.
because he made stuff like this, you know.
I'll find out in a minute. I'm getting close to doing Batman and Robin for the films podcast, and I did it 4 years ago, crapping on it. I'm like, am I gonna? Is this where I turn around on? I might be ready to see this much ridiculous Batman now that we have so much stuff later. You know?
Schumacher, let me just tell you, I'm always gonna stick up for him in those Batman movies because when I watch those Batman movies, I'm looking at all of the um that was some of the last movies that really did everything practically. Like all those shots of cities and everything. A lot of things that people think are computerized in those movies are absolutely not. I mean, he used so much money, you know. But again, the studio wanted toy commercials. I mean, was always very. Did you ever hear the commentaries on any of those with Schumacher?
I've read interviews with him. I'm not so much. I'm more of a read interview guy than a commentary guy,
Okay.
but
Well,
it's come up.
I love reading the comment or listening to the commentaries rather because like he just straight up tells it like it is, you know. And once you know that Schumacher was a queer filmmaker and all of this other stuff that goes into it, you can't just watch the movies and go, these suck because they're not Tim Burton copies.
That colored my viewing of Falling Down last night too, because when I saw it in 1994, I had no aware. I was like, this dude's making this aggro movie, whereas now it's like, oh, this is the queer filmmaker making this. Look
Exactly.
up his wiki page. And it's like,
Oh,
okay, that
absolutely.
that has to inform this. I mean, obviously, it's not. We're not idolizing this guy. Anyway, big tangent there, but interesting movie to revisit.
Yeah.
That's throwing in the psycho, which Pip doesn't do. We only go scumbag in Pip. We don't go psycho.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
true.
mildly relevant, I guess.
But a
But
great
yeah,
comparison to make.
I guess that's the whole read the universe thing. If you're getting woo woo and everything, it's like I keep finding things where I'll watch something for a podcast and then just watch something randomly that totally fits into the other thing I just watched. They just seem
Oh,
to
sure.
puzzle piece it together.
Yeah,
Um,
no, fair enough. That's a good one. I didn't even think about that.
let's do a couple questions here. Who in this episode goes in or through the Twilight Zone?
Well, when we are faced with this question, my first thing to do is to find out if Rod Serling actually told us, because sometimes he tells us who went to the Twilight Zone.
Correct.
Uh,
You don't have to agree with him
no,
though.
no, you don't, because why would you agree with the person that wrote it? I mean, that's so,
Sometimes you shouldn't.
no, no, you don't have to. Max Phillips will soon discover his lesson is to be learned in the Twilight Zone.
Okay. So
So,
I mean, honestly, you watch this
full
episode
circle.
and you'd be very hard pressed not to say that Phillips is the guy going through the Twilight Zone.
Not that many characters in it.
Right. The question, I guess, is it like an outside Twilight Zone influencing him, or is it like within himself? Is he creating his own Twilight Zone? Because
Mm.
Little Girl Lost, it's out there. You're not creating that. In this episode, there's a very good argument that he's creating his personal Twilight Zone.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that because a lot of this has to do with his turmoil, and his regret and his guilt and all of that stuff. It's all inner stuff. So yeah, absolutely. This is the case of that.
Right. So, which you can do that. That's fine. But that's something that you could do on the just to throw in a little trivia I didn't throw in before. Um, this is kind of a reworked version of a script called Next of Kin, a script Serling wrote for Kraft Television Theater and aired April 8th, 1953.
Mm.
This it says it's the A plot from that, so that one had a few more things going on than just this. But this does predate the Twilight Zone, and maybe that's why he's just saying, okay, turmoil, that's a Twilight Zone this week. And it makes it maybe a little bit more palatable to audiences that may not know the Twilight Zone. It's been off the air for several months. If you didn't watch season 4, it's been off the air for a year and a half. So,
Yeah, and it doesn't get well, I guess that would be something to get into with the tripometer, but I think, no one will be surprised to think that at least for me, it rates on the lower side of that because this was one that he was pretty much sticking to reality for the most part.
yeah, I had a feeling we'd be bopping through the questions quickly today. So let's get to the trip meter. Just quickly say, does he deserve it? You can counter what I'm going to say, but yes, he's a scumbag, of course.
No, I've been calling him a scumbag the whole episode. I'm with you.
Okay, so the tripometer. I want to say 1, but I'll give it half star, 1.5 for the Hall of Mirrors because I always find a Hall of Mirrors trippy. So 1.5 is my score.
Okay, I'm gonna go a little higher, and I'm gonna say two, just because he has all that interaction with his son and it's out of time, you
Hmm.
know, a little trippy.
Yeah, yeah, but for me, I guess like the drama of it all didn't, I was like, this is drama focused, not like weird experience focused. But
But it is still asking us to accept something that is not actually possible.
yes. Um, anyway, I guess we can wrap it up today. I think this is now early October for folks listening. If you want to tell folks about yourself, your future self in October.
Okay, so me in October, what I'm going to be doing? Going to be enjoying some spooky stuff. This October is my favorite month of the year. You should mark your calendar if you're listening to this and you're in the Atlanta or Athens, Georgia area. Gonzoriffic's Underground Movie Show, our 16th year of the show, will be at Athens Cine on Hancock Avenue in Athens, Georgia on Friday, November the 8th and Saturday, November the 9th. And we will be doing an encore 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, November the 10th on our YouTube channel. Gonzoriffic is spelled Gonzoriffic. I'm also a published author. You can get my book. It's called Everybodies, Everybodies, through the Amazon store. And if you go to gonzoriffic.com, we have a new Blu-ray, I'm sorry, DVD mixtape out called Zombikini. That is short films we did in 2022 and 23.
All right. On this end, you can support Time Enough Podcast on Patreon at Podcastio Podcastius, where we do lots of other things. We mentioned Films and Filth, where we talk about supposedly really good and really bad films. Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin coming up very soon. Um, we've got we just finished up on podcast 1999 where we were talking about Space 1999, but we do maybe have some future for that podcast as well. There's gaming stuff, Luke Loves Pokemon, and the Game Show, where gamers game each other about games. Okay, you got some praise for Pip? You want to praise Pip?
I do praise Pip. I want to praise Pip like I should. Yeah, oh, you know what? Speaking of music, I forgot to mention this. Um, there's a song on Spotify that I did the all the music for. It's another artist. Her name is Bethany Hartman, and that she did the Zombikini theme song. So she did lyrics, melody, and vocals, and I provided all the music. It's the first music that I've actually like properly released on the Spotify platform or any of the in the digital age. So yeah, if you look up Bethany Hartman, there was two songs, and one I was just the engineer on, um, called Your Girl. But yeah, Bethany does Zombikini theme. That's me doing all the other instruments.
Late stage plug. So as I
Right.
like to increasingly say on podcasts, hit that minus 15 like four times and you'll get the outro.
Right.
And I guess that's my new bit. Outro has been said. Hit the rewind.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
By
Simple
the
and
way,
sweet.
I didn't plug my music in that particular podcast, but I have been posting some stuff, and of course, you are welcome to use it.
Okay.
That's at the Roving Sage
Roving
Media
Sage
site.
Media. I have it bookmarked here.
Descent into the Fairy Mound is kind of folk rock. There's the only electric instrument's the bass. Um, and it has instrumental versions at the end as well, like just in the basic download. Because
What?
well,
Oh,
because the guy I occasionally still do, but because it's anyway, guy I often bum around with on the weekends. I was playing him the tracks. He's like, yeah, I love your guitar playing, but I hate your singing. So I was like, okay, well,
oh my God, what?
I'll stick the instrumentals at the end then.
Oh my God. How could he
Ah,
say that?
well, he gave an honest answer, right?
That's not cool.
Well, some people, you don't like everyone's voice. I mean, I like XTC, but I always have like a little bit of a disconnect with XTC because I hate Andy Partridge's voice. Probably because
Okay.
I sound kind of like that when I sing, so I kind of get it. Elvis Costello, I don't really like Elvis Costello's voice, and that might be because my voice is like kind of close to that. So I think it's like singers that sound close to me, I actually don't like.
Oh my God, this is all new to this is all new.
I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about Elvis Costello. Lots of great music, right? But um,
Okay. Mid-century modern.
that that might be good. Those are the binaural stuff, which you just like take a. It's all like head trip shit, right? So you would just like,
Right, so it's looking like there are 3 tracks.
and they're all 25 minutes long. Yeah.
So are these all what's the instrumental one?
Um. Oh, that's all instrumental. If you go back, there's Glaze Cathexis, Descent into the Fairy Mound, like right before that.
That's got vocals in it.
That's what got vocals and the instrumental ones. Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna buy both of these from
Mm,
you.
just download it.
Well, but
I
uh
think it just makes you get updates from my email eventually. That's
but
how
I'm
that.
already buying people's stuff anyway.
Okay, well, thank you then.
Well,
Um,
I'm using it.
I
I mean, I don't
think I think there's an option, by the way, where you could just like get access to everything that way. I mean, you can access it anyway, but there is a buy everything, which it's like the same amount, I believe. Because I
right.
mean, I'm not, none of this is here to make money.
No, God, everything now that Gonzoriffic earns and my book has to go back into.
Yeah, because actually I mean, I never made real money from music, but like 2015, we had like a little bit of an income coming in, for the music, and not
No,
anymore.
when my stuff was on Amazon Prime, like when Space Boobs in Space was on Amazon Prime, have I told you?
Oh yeah,
Um,
you said you're like getting like legit like cash
I was
ins from
making
that.
quit your job money. I mean, it was more than my regular income from being a writer.
Let's see. I'm looking at the all times for so the music made like $700, which that's not quit your job money, but almost all of that is from like, like about 2015. So, it wasn't rolling. I mean, yeah, music's really hard. I mean, the podcasts, they make enough to support, like when we're not bullshitting when we say like you're keeping the lights on at the transistor site, right? We haven't gotten to the point where, oh, why, thank you. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we can, I've lost my train of thought. Oh, well.
No, you're talking about the money the podcast is
Oh,
earning.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Pays for all the hosting, but it doesn't pay for the Zoom yet. That's where we are in Podcastio Podcasters. Nobody pays for the hosting or anything, but I'm still paying for my Zoom. But I use my Zoom for, talking to my parents doing stuff too. So I guess it's okay.
All right, so how do I then download? Oh, there, I see it. I see it. I see it. Beep, beep, beep. Man, that's a tiny ass plane. Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think I've downloaded much from there, but thanks. But yeah, yeah. So because I remember you saying several years ago, people were like, "Oh, it's kind of indie with the vocals," but I don't know. It's sometimes nice to have the instrumentals there too.
Uh, I was gonna say it's a if I have you singing a song in one of the movies, I want there to be more songs sung by you in the movie, like the movie oh geez, what's
Space
that
Booze had a
called?
lot of me singing. I remember.
Yeah, when I was happy, but I had vocal based stuff because the Space Boobs theme that Tanya Atomic did also had vocals. Um, Also, if there's a song on the radio or something that needs to be playing in a bar, I always prefer it's your one of the vocal tracks. But if
Mm-mm.
it's going under action and there's dialogue involved, I would always do the instrumental.
Yeah,
So
the
I'm
one
glad.
thing I would say is the binaural stuff and the folk rock stuff. I mean, they maybe put in the same movie, but it doesn't. They're definitely different fields of music.
No, this is. I'm glad you told me though because I'm to the point now where I really am trying to choose the right music for some things, and some of it I'm going to be making myself. I told you I bought a cheap set of electronic drums
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
the
Keep
guy that
named
owns
it.
Flicker Bar. Um,
I think my next purchase is going to be a, mini log.
yeah,
I have a monologue, and the mini log has different circuitry. So even though they're both Korg, the mini log does sound different.
mhm. Yeah, those are the kind of things. And then I've been making beats. There's a couple apps that I really like the
What are you
the way
using?
um The okay, on my phone, the one that I'm using, uh, drum pads and figure are the ones that I'm using.
Okay. I've been a
Um,
slave to the funk box for 10 years.
Funkbox is awesome, but
And sometimes I'll
online
just use GarageBand, actually.
online though, I have a membership because you need that in order to do royalty free stuff or where you can don't have to credit somebody.
Hmm.
It's called Splice.
Oh, you're using actual beats. Okay. I'm still like constructing everything myself, so I don't have to worry about
No,
that.
I'm like, Splice has like drum and bass and like hip hop, they have different sounds and stuff like that, but it gives you already like a stem to work from
Hmm.
and you can swap out and everything, and then I'll play my own bass guitar over it and things like that.
Okay. I'm
Um,
I'm listening, by the way, but I'm turning off my air conditioning, opening the windows. For podcasting, I can't run the fan and have the windows open, but sorry, that's Japan. We don't have central air. You run your air conditioner as little as possible.
Damn. I don't know if you could hear that, but that's just like a one drum and bass.
I lied. I missed a little bit of what you said because I had stretched it out too. The cord wouldn't reach to the window.
No, that's fine. You just it lets you sort through different drums and stuff. And if you don't like something in the stem, you can take one of them out and hit the cycle button so you find what you want, or you can type in specifically what you want. And what's wonderful about this is I have in one of my new movies, there's a scene that needs exercise music that has to sound like it was made in the 1980s or early 90s to like a Jane Fonda workout type stuff. And so what I did there was I typed in exercise
Ah, okay.
and I typed in retro exercise. And then I did a combination of things where I was kind of like happy with it. And then I used oh God, I just told you this. Uh
Splice.
Not
I remember
Splice.
Splice.
Splice is what I'm making the
Oh, the
the
first one you mentioned. Yeah.
backing track with. I used Figure, and Figure is just it's
Yeah.
constantly spins,
Okay.
right? And wherever you touch on it, you can control the speed and everything. So it's basically what I use for my lead parts.
Mm.
So the exercise music I got, but what's freaky is I did try AI to do a women rap group to do a theme song for this movie Ass Off. It was freaky
Yeah,
because you type in the lyrics and it'll say them, and you
That's
can get really specific.
that's where the occult Disney theme song came from. I had Scott write lyrics and then it went through AI and there were like 15 versions of the theme song to consider.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it did. And so, what was yours called that you used?
I didn't use it. The other guy used it.
The other guy used it. Yeah,
I
that's
probably
on
asked
here.
him, he told me and I've forgotten. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's because I have that on here too. I bookmarked that as well, but I still don't know how I feel about using that because I'm not sure where it sources its stuff from.
No, because
But
like Mark was like, oh, maybe I'll make he wanted to make like a stinger for the podcastio stuff. And he was like, I think he mentioned AI and Luke was like, hell no, I won't be involved in any podcast using any AI stuff, which I actually made the films and filth artwork using an AI platform at least. But
I mean, what is Canva? You know what I mean? I mean,
mm,
Canva is
I
it's not.
use which you can't really use for free anymore. I had a trial for a little while and then you could use it for free. But now it's pretty much garbage, which is I was using, so I'm still looking for it. Mm, 8.9 Photo Leap,
Yeah, yeah.
which
Photoleap. Some of my icons that I use in video games are from Photoleap.
pretty much all of my podcast artwork I made when Photo Leap was usable for free, or I probably did some with the trial, but the Time Enough podcast, the Occult Disney, the even space, all of them were made with that. Oh, did I
Yeah.
send you the art on Facebook? Did I send you the artwork for this new thing? Yes,
Mm-mm.
I did. Good. The for podcast 1999 because I just slap an ape on it. We'll do the apes.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you didn't go into how you did that.
I asked the other guys to do it because I don't know how to. I know you can cut out faces and stick them on, but I was
It
basically,
sucks.
hey,
It
someone
sucks.
slap an ape face on there. So Brian or Mark did that. I
Yeah.
guess that's the one Brian did in the end.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I mean, I once went to Fiverr um to get just something cut out, a really elaborate like photograph that I wanted the background
Mm,
out of. I just paid someone like $4 to do it on there.
right.
It sucks to do, and I don't want to do it.
So, well, that I was like, yeah, one of the co-hosts will do it, and they did. Yay! But
No,
no, the plan there is to do the '70s movies. Probably, I don't think we'll do the new ones now. I mean, not there's something wrong with the new ones. It just doesn't fit the vibe, right? So bring you on for Beneath. Bring John Champion on for the first one because on the Sci-Fi Sanctuary is the other way around. So just
oh, is
flip
it?
it.
Okay.
So John for the first one, you for the second one. Then Luke gets dibs. Maybe if you want to come back for a movie or TV show, that's fine. But I remember Luke bought the Blu-ray set when we were still doing Sci-Fi Sanctuary because he expected we were going to do all of those, and then we didn't. So he gets his choice of the last three.
Yeah, but
I think he said the fifth one, but I was like, "Are you sure? You probably want the fourth one."
yeah. Um,
Five's
God, you
interesting.
should have those. They're all good, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just a joke that he bought the
Okay.
Blu-ray because we were going to do them all for the Sci-Fi Sanctuary, and then we
Right.
changed the
But if you like
podcast.
science fiction, that's
But
pretty.
I'm still like inviting. I mean, he did like 30-second reviews of like all the apes things like this year on Twitter or TikTok or whatever. So he knows the apes, but yeah, I just feel like I have to bring him in for one or two of the last three, because he was supposed to do all of them.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
never seen the TV show, but the only one you have to track down elsewhere seems to be the first episode. The rest you can watch on YouTube, which is for that podcast. I'm like, if we become like actually popular, maybe it doesn't have to be on YouTube. But when only 40 or 50 people are listening every week, it's like maybe it should be like easily available.
I have the animated series DVD.
That's also on YouTube.
Okay.
So we'll do the live action one. Like Logan's Run, I would have done that, but you can't watch that on YouTube.
Hmm.
Like the
No, I get.
TV show, yeah. And
Yeah.
of course, Buck Rogers and Battlestar have still. I don't know. Buck Rogers, I thought might be on YouTube, but it's not. And Battlestar is like it probably won't be, and it's not. So,
Hmm.
I mean, can I get hold of them and watch them? Sure. Well, I got Buck Rogers on DVD, but yeah, Logan's Run might be hard to find on TV if it's not on YouTube. Maybe it's on Tubi or something, but you can't
Tubi
watch
has a
Tubi
lot
in
of
Japan.
stuff.
Yeah, but you can't watch it all in Japan. That's the problem. So.
Oh, right. Oh, that's. Oh, right. Because of rights things. Well, I
I
made
mean,
a
we
few.
there's other times like when we did Das Boot, I think like Mark couldn't watch the really good link that Luke and I were watching,
Oh.
so he
Hmm.
had to watch it a different way because
Hmm.
we could watch in Japan, but he couldn't watch it in the States.
But it was still the same cut of Das Boot.
The one, well, yeah, we were watching the not the miniseries cut, but the extended cut because there's like one that's 2.5 hours, one that's 3.5 hours, and there's one that's five, and all of us watched the 3.5 hour cut.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, as long as you can, you're all
I've never
watching.
seen a 5 hour cut. That honestly sounds like too much booty. Bolt. It actually should be pronounced bolt, it seems. That's bolt. You have to say it
That
with a
was
German
Netflix,
accent.
right? Did they do that for Netflix? I can't remember.
Oh, the miniseries? I think it predated that. I think they did it like in the 90s or something.
I don't know if you like the Hateful Eight, but they've currently got a miniseries version of Hateful Eight
I
on
heard
Netflix.
that. I got it on cheap Blu-ray several months ago, but it's still in its original packaging.
I haven't. I'm
I'll
not
get it. I mean, I just
searching.
I because you can use American credit card on Japanese Amazon and the exchange rate is so whack. Just like I've been buying Blu-rays at dirt cheap. So I just have this pile of stuff I haven't watched. Let's see what's in the pile just for fun. Let's see. We've got Jaws, didn't have that on Blu-ray. Gotta have your
Oh yeah.
Jaws. I was telling you I was just watching 2010 last night, right?
Hmm. I don't have that.
Earthquake, Charlton Heston.
Nice. Oh, the weird packaging.
Yeah, I know. Hobbs and Shaw.
Okay.
Speaking of having fun saying curse words, I just watched the Poseidon Adventure. Uh, I
Had you
just
never seen it before?
no.
Wow.
I tried watching the Thin Red Line again, but it's still kind of boring.
There's Terrence Malick. Well, yeah, it's like I try to defend Malick, but then people will mention the Thin Red Line.
I still need to watch Tree of Life, which I have on Blu-ray somewhere. Um,
It's a slog, but
this
it's worth
this was interesting. We just rewatched. I just rewatched this, but the Japanese, which you can't read, but it's called Ghost Hunters. So I think in Japan they were trying to market this like, oh, this is like Ghostbusters,
it. Ah,
which kind of
um,
makes sense, but at the same time, like,
yeah.
I guess they're just both so iconic. You're like, no, that's a stupid idea.
Oh
Air
no,
Force
here you go.
One,
There
yeah.
you go.
I didn't have Terminator on Blu-ray, so now I do. Uh, Untouchables, which I've never seen.
Really?
Yeah, that's a De Palma I missed. Deep Impact, which we went to the drive-in theater to see on closing night. Were you there?
Mm-mm,
Maybe that's you must have lived in Woodstock by then. And
probably.
oh, this sucked. I put in Unstoppable. And then an hour in the it was a used one, so an hour in the Blu-ray started glitching. So that sucked
I
because
couldn't
everybody
tell you the ending because I don't know. I don't remember.
I
I
couldn't either
liked it.
because the Blu-ray started glitching.
Hmm, that
So that was
sucks.
I thought that was a pile that was going to have Hateful Eight, but it wasn't. But that's somewhere around here too, because that's the
Yeah.
only Tarantino I've never seen.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm waiting for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to get cheap enough. It's still 3,000 yen, so that's like $22 or something. But this stuff, it's like
That's too
it's all
much.
like $7 a pop, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's a great deal. All right, man.
And
I'm gonna
okay,
I'm gonna peace out. I'm gonna go get some dinner.
I'm still recording, so people are just hearing me list movies. Okay, well, if you're still on Patreon, listening to me just list movies, thanks. Later.
I would listen to that.
Okay, well, someone did if they're still listening.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's going to get dinner. What?
Yummy.
Talk more about what you're eating.
Pizza. I'm gonna go get a pizza. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, so that's as far as y'all know. It's freaking pizza. All right, man. Well, I'll talk
Oh,
to you later.